boat without a rudder is at the whim of the elements. It drifts. If the news tells you one way, it goes one way. If all of a sudden there's something else, it goes another way. And we're constantly being twisted and turned and spun around. And I think that's why people go to bed exhausted and wake up tired, is that they're not fulfilled.
Today's guest on the Keynote Curators podcast is Eric Saperston. Eric is a speaker, author, and award-winning filmmaker. Eric believes that people are the most powerful structure. In our conversation, Eric and I uncover his thoughts and ideas around how to live a fulfilled life, how to be fully self-expressed, and how to powerfully connect with the people in your life to accomplish extraordinary results. It's an important conversation, and we're glad that you're here to join us and learn. So listen in and enjoy the podcast. Alrighty, so welcome everybody. Welcome to today's version of Curated Insights with Seth Dechtman. Our guest is Eric Saperston. Eric, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Seth. Always a joy to spend time with you.
It really is. Now, you have the beautiful flowers behind you. You're in the wonderful state of Hawaii. And, it's early in the morning where you are and a little bit later in the afternoon. That's always got to be a nice feeling to, be on an island in the tropics. So I want to talk today a little bit about everything that has to do with you, Eric. But I just want to start off. We're going to do a little bit of word association. Okay. So I want you to connect pandemic, crisis, and living on the island.
Pandemic, crisis, living on the island. The thing that comes to mind first is know where your food is coming from, know where your water's coming from, that we've been living a really luxurious life, having all this instant gratification. And when crisis like this happens, I think it's a really good opportunity for us to take an inventory and kind of think about, well, if the trucks stop running and the grocery store stops producing food there, where are we going to get our food? Where are we going to get our water? How are we going to be sustainable? I think it was a good wake-up call for a lot of people to think about not only where their food and water and power comes from, but also around meaning. That this gave us an opportunity to slow down and think about, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why is this where I'm spending my time? And for those people that were courageous, they used this as an opportunity to pivot and find the silver linings in all the sadness.
Right. It's really well said, because the world kind of came to a stop, and we took inventory of what's important and what the priorities are. My question is, living on an island, there are certain constraints just by proxy of being on an island. And given the artificial constraint of a pandemic, or, call it natural or whatever, the constraint of the pandemic has had us look at what we have, what we need, and what we want. And I think that you were sharing a little bit about that. I was hearing that it really reduces down to what it is that do we really need versus what it is that we want.
All right. Yeah. Having the privilege of speaking in front of so many organizations, top organizations, and coaching executives that run those, one of the things that I've been talking to folks about a lot lately is around fulfillment and meaning. What does that mean? And I think prior to the pandemic, I believe everybody was just kind of running fast and doing stuff to do stuff and working really hard and going to bed exhausted and waking up tired. And I just feel like that really is a pandemic. That is a lot of people doing that. And I feel that what this did is gave us a chance to reset and go, wait a minute, man, life is very precious. Our time on earth is limited. And what do we need to do to wake up excited and go to bed fulfilled? And to me, that has been my calling in my life, is to help people discover that for themselves. And one way that's been happening is realizing how important guiding principles are. That after studying for the last 25 years the most top visionaries, extraordinary leaders, and pioneers of all different industries, one of the commonalities that they all have is that they're really clear about what governs their lives. They're not living by blind chance and magic. They're really clear about their operating principles. And what I've discovered during this time is, when I ask people what their guiding principles are, most people's guiding principles, they have a vague idea of them, but they haven't taken time to really define them. So if they are walking around and leading people and governing organizations with a vague idea of what really matters to them, man, their lives become so much more complicated. They're not sure when to say yes. They're not sure when to say no. They're living with a lot of anxiety and uncertainty. And what I've discovered with all these top leaders that I've met is that, look, a boat without a rudder drifts.
Right.
And that's what's happening to a lot of people.
Right.
They've got really designer boats, but they're drifting. And
Right.
having a rudder is really knowing what those clear guiding principles are. And that's something that I think the pandemic gave us a chance to kind of question and ask ourselves what really matters. What do we stand for? What do we commit to?
And in the work you do, how do you get them? Because I would include myself, sometimes it's less vague, other times it's more vague, these guiding principles. But the work that you do, how do you get them from vague to concrete or defined or clear?
One of the things that we're able to do, at least in our coaching sessions, we're able to reflect back to people what it is they're saying and be able to remind people going, oh, wait, did you hear yourself right there? What you just said there sounds like a guiding principle. Is that a guiding principle for you? Oh, it is? Oh, it's not? Okay, great. Let's figure out what the principle is. Even right now, I just had a client that daughter was, busted for drugs, and the father was really upset trying to figure out how do I help my daughter out. And coming from anger, coming from frustration, coming from fear, coming from powerlessness, all that was having his language reflect that. And so he was coming across being kind of disapproving and unhappy versus, hey, what would be the guiding principle there? And the guiding principle is that, hey, what we got to understand through our discussion was that everyone that screws up feels like love is going to leave them. That's really one of the biggest things. And so how can you as a leader govern your life in such a way that your daughter feels like no matter what, love is not going to leave you, and I'm concerned about your behavior? Most people show up and say, hey, I'm pissed off. I can't believe you're doing this, and leave the deal, and everybody feels less than. In this way, we were able to help him get a really clear guiding principle that, look, I want my daughter to know first and foremost how much I love her and that I'm here no matter what. And then here's what we need to do to course correct behavior. So that's one of those ways we get to reflect back I think that what enables guiding principles to work so much is it gives a big context to operate and behave from.
Gotcha. It sounds like it's these core virtues, the word value is often used, this guiding principle or even a compass by which you can navigate. But I love the metaphor of the rudderless ship, the rudderless vessel. You could have a designer yacht, but if you don't know where you're going or how you're going, then, what good is it really?
Yeah, I learned that. I interviewed a world-renowned architect, John Portman, who is an amazing human being. And he was the one that brought that to my attention first, going, look, yeah, exactly. We have these designer boats, top, amazing stereos, great, sails that, by Ralph Lauren. And, and we've got all this nice stuff. A boat without a rudder is at the whim of the elements. It drifts. The news tells you one way, it goes one way. If all of a sudden, there's something else, it goes another way. And we're constantly being twisted and turned and spun around. And I think that's why people go to bed exhausted and wake up tired, is that they're not fulfilled. And getting really clear about those rudders enables somebody to be the captain of their own vessel. They get to actually cut through the water and go where they want to go. And to me, that's not only guiding principles, but it's also language. We've learned a lot about language. I mean, very powerful leaders wield language to produce optimal results. And they realize that language is everything, and not everything. There's lots of other ways to communicate. There's nonverbal and there's our tone. But we use like 7% of what we do is language and words. And man, they're powerful. And what we realize now is that our stories and our language are either in the on position or the off position. They're either inclusive or they're off-putting. Either they're inspiring or they're disempowering. Either they're uplifting or they're shameful. Either they're causing people to produce extraordinary results or they're sending people into places where they're apathetic and cynical. It's really clear to me. And what we've learned is that people who are doing extraordinary things in the world are using language that uplifts and inspires not only themselves, but everyone else around them.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I often, when I talk to my children, I say, when you're around people and you feel better about yourself when you're around them, that's a clue. Those are the kind of people you want to have around you. Not that they're sucking up to you, but where you feel inspired and you feel like there's a little bit of life being breathed into you and the relationship. I think that that's really great, Eric. Words matter. And I often am aware, and I'll include myself again, sometimes people just don't pay attention to what comes out of their mouth. I've heard the phrase, when you're casual with your language, you create casualties. And it sounds very catchy and cliche, but it's so true. It's so true because language is the world that we create for ourselves and for everybody around us. And in the 25 years that you've been doing your work and this study of success and getting to the source of fulfillment and what has people being connected and full of love and affinity, it's a long journey, 25 years. And it started maybe with the journey or even before that, your famous film. But what are you working on right now that excites you? What is it today in this moment that has you turned on the most?
What has me turned on the most right now is looking at regenerative practices. Being on an organic farm.
Regenerative practices?
Yeah, regenerative, sustainable, looking at how, what can we learn from permaculture? What can we learn from farming? And how does that apply to leadership? And being on a farm, it's so beautiful to be here, to watch things grow, to see what has to happen in order for things to grow. And looking at our soil, looking at how lush and rich our soil is that enables things to actually produce fruit. And what I've started to realize is that there's so many people out there that aren't treating themselves as soil. They're running ragged, they're running tired, they're running depleted, their energy levels are so low, everybody's so inundated, the world drowning in information and all this taxing on everybody's adrenals, everybody's running, and they are just exhausted trying to produce extraordinary results. And living on a farm,
they're missing the nutrients.
Exactly, right? So there's a huge distinction that we've been playing with around being selfish and taking care of oneself. And that right now we are soil, you are soil, I am soil. And in order for us to live extraordinary lives and provide value and be of service, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to nurture ourselves, drink lots of water, be healthy, rest, sun, all of it. Just being able to treat our bodies with reverence and respect and dignity. Living on a farm with people, it's my responsibility to show up as powerfully as I can, and people are relying on me to be that. If I'm depleted, if I'm not rested, if I'm not eating well, if I'm not taking care of my body, then I'm showing up irritated, agitated, a little less kind, and then I'm trying to yield extraordinary results coming from depletion. It's so hard to do that. It's almost impossible. So I think all of us as leaders and on teams, that we need to make sure that our culture and our community is taking care of themselves, to really nurture and create value for everybody, to know that it has to be sustainable.
That's a great metaphor, taking your own person, me, as the soil, which is full of everything we need to cultivate and grow whatever it is that we want to create and grow. But before you do that, you need to have all the nutrients and you need to have the ecosystem set up to be able to grow whatever it is that you choose to grow. It's just a really clean metaphor. I really like that.
Thanks. We're talking a lot about organizational health. So as a team or as an organization, how's the health of your organization? How's the psychological safety? How is the inclusion? How's the belonging? How is everybody being able to relate to one another? How's the transparency? Is it a place where people really are going and feeling like they can actually grow? Or is it a place that has a lot of fear, anxiety, depletion? It's really important. I believe that right now, especially with all the millennials coming up, they want to be at places that have meaning. They don't want to work so hard and not feel fulfilled. So we as organizations need to step up our game and create a much more nutrient-rich environment for people to flourish and grow.
Right. I love that. I've been hearing that from you a lot. Eric, the distinction of this metaphor and, working with us as being selfish or self-care, and we're the soil, it really crystallizes the idea. But the everyday life where we're on the court and we're being bombarded with emails and requests and we're behind and we're late, I see a beautiful metaphor like you just shared with me. What do you recommend? How do you work with people to intervene? Because it's appealing, it's beautiful, it's elegant, it's powerful. But to get from where one might be depleted, exhausted, unfulfilled, irritated, less kind, to get over into that other paradigm, what kind of intervention, what kind of get that train off the track in the other direction? What do you have to say about that?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Seth. The way I see that, again, a guiding principle that I think is really important that will help us take that track and switch the train so that we can move in the other direction, a direction that's much more fulfilling, is the guiding principle: never give your power away. that one of the things that I'm realizing is that people, just like you said, there's emails, there's requests, there's meetings, there's all kinds of stuff, there's family needs. We are bombarded with so much taxing stuff on our being that the only way to overcome that is to become more sovereign, really get clear about what I stand for and what I'm committed to. By giving your power away, that's one of the things, Billy Crystal, when I interviewed him, he was the one that mentioned that to me. He said, once you give your power away to something else, then you're done. That we got to maintain our personal power. We're all very powerful people. And so if we give our power away to the news, we give our power away to the pandemic, we give our power away to a disgruntled colleague that's on my team, we start giving our power away to other people, we lose our own personal strength. So if I want to reclaim this, I got to get really clear about who I am, what I'm committed to, what I'm a stand for. I want to get my language in the on position, and I want to move with velocity. And if I'm not committed to it, then I'm not committed to it. And I've got to be able to wield my language to be able to accept, decline, counteroffer, make good agreements, do all the things I need to do to move through. But the most important thing for me is that, look, the world is crazy right now. And I get why it could be easily spun around like a boat without a rudder, but getting clear about my own power and being present in the moment and doing the best I can in this moment. A lot of pain and suffering, happens because people aren't present. I'm talking to all these top executives and they're running around trying to talk to you, trying to do an email, trying to tell their kid, I'll talk to you later, trying to do all this stuff. And what's ended up happening is that they're not present. They're not present with who they're talking to. They're always telling the person who they're talking to, I'm sorry, I got to go. And then they're never present. They've given their power away to all these external needs and desires versus, hey, look, there's 24 hours in a day. I'm going to do the best I can in this 24 hours. I'm going to do the next right thing and the next right thing. I'm going to be present. The two things I've really come to realize that everybody wants in this world is, number one, everybody wants to be seen and heard. So if we as leaders can look at people and actually take the time so that everyone feels seen and heard, that's inclusive. That's very powerful. And then the second thing is everybody wants to be reassured that they're doing a good job, that they're on a good path, and that I appreciate and value what you're doing. So in every communication exchange, if we can do those two things, create a space in which everybody gets to be seen and heard and reassure people, people feel, just like you said about your daughter, if you're hanging out with people that when you leave them, that you feel uplifted and inspired, that's a good sign. Yeah. And top leaders know how to do that better than most.
Yeah. And, as I'm listening to you, I can hear this common thread that slow down, just slow down. To be seen and to be acknowledged and to be able to do that for others, you need to slow down. And it's hard because we're pushed and pulled and the world is moving fast and life does move fast. But I love that word sovereignty. It really speaks to me. And in language, you said it yourself. We give away our sovereignty when we're saying not now, we'll do it later, a little bit busy, I can't do it right now. It's really great. So I'm gonna slow down if you don't mind, and I'm gonna join you with a little bit of chapeau, a little gorra, a little sombrero here, and so that we can kind of match from island over to the continent over here. When you talk about the 25 years and everybody that you've been working with, is there a common thread? Because you're a different speaker today, you're a different coach today than you were when you started. And your work has developed and evolved as well. But is there a common thread or a common theme that you've seen during the span of the work that you've been doing that is just universal, that would be valuable to everybody listening in today?
I do indeed. Before I go there, I just wanted to jump back. You were talking about slowing down, and I was reminded of Mahatma Gandhi said, "There's more to life than increasing its speed." And actor and comedian Lily Tomlin said, "For fast acting relief, try slowing down." I really believe that I really do believe those are two really powerful things.
And it's not every day you hear Gandhi and Lily Tomlin in the same conversation. So it
is not common that you'd hear that. I'm going to go to the next thing in a second, but I think slowing down, you were talking, I just want to hit that a little harder here. The slowing down thing is so important. I think people believe that, the world is just sped up. There's just so many ways to get distracted. And really, the people who have gone on to produce extraordinary results in this world are people who can slow things down. They know how to be present and slow things down and be here in the moment and really handle this and then move on to the next thing and handle it and handle it and handle it. And that to me is becoming a real strong guiding principle, is how do we slow things down? I'm doing a lot of martial arts these days. And one of the things that we're learning is in relaxation comes speed. The more we can relax, the more we can settle in on something, the more speed we can be. And so I think the more present we can be with each other, the more extraordinary results we can produce.
Yeah, it is counterintuitive. I experience it when I'm competing on the tennis court. When I'm present enough to know that I'm tense and tight, I'm not quick reacting. And I'm not, I'm never cheetah-like, but I'm not having that quick move to be able to make a midpoint adjustment with my feet or my body, or a quick mind adjustment, if you will. And it's a constant thing. And one of the things that my coach and I work on is not where I'm striking the ball or what my grip is or how my shoulders are turned. It's breathing. And it's an exercise and a tool that I'm just now beginning to utilize on the court to slow things down and get centered and get focused and be present. And so maybe my being in tune to what you were sharing, I was hearing slow down and, and be present. So, it really spoke to me personally. Yeah. So I'm going to switch gears here, and we're going to go back. I want to revisit the question of, your 25 years, Eric, I got another one here. I came prepared. I got a whole wardrobe for you.
I love it.
You 25 years of sharing the insights that you learned, being generous with everything that you've experienced with these high performing, high producing, elite level leaders in business, in entertainment, in every possible industry. But what I was asking was, is there that common thread from 25 years ago to now? Given that you're a different person, your work is a different person, the world is a different place.
Great. Yeah. I've learned something that really, it brings me so much joy and energy and happiness, that what I discovered studying, right? So I've spent 25 years, as you mentioned, interviewing iconic visionaries, pioneers, rock stars, CEOs, farmers, astronauts, just the best people on the planet who have accomplished wonderful things and have produced extraordinary results, and studying the common traits, right? What is it that they all have that they do that maybe that I didn't know, but what is it? I'm studying and looking for the themes, and there's so many themes of, that their willingness to ask for help. That's a big one. Most people think asking for help is a sign of weakness, but really it's a sign of strength that people go on to do extraordinary stuff. We've already talked about having really clear guiding principles. We've talked about the importance of wielding communication in the most positive ways. But the thing that really just rocked my world, and it gave me so much power when I discovered it, what enables people to live extraordinary lives for decades, has them wake up excited and go to bed fulfilled and produce extraordinary results, is that they all still come from a sense of wonder. They still carry with them a deep sense of curiosity, a sense of playfulness, a sense of learning, a sense of exploration. They see their lives as an adventure that they're on every day, and they're just experimenting and playing and interacting with things and just getting into what they're doing. They don't see things as success and failure. They don't see things as right and wrong. They see things as a process of learning and growing and adapting and pivoting and recalibrating. And they just are on the adventure, on the journey. And it was such a refreshing thing to realize. I was with Steven Tyler at an event, and I remember just whispering in his ear, he didn't know me at that time, and I whispered in his ear, I said, hey man, I've been spending the last 25 years following up extraordinary people, and now I'm studying the important role wonder plays in all of our lives. And he just stopped, looked back at me and said, I could write a whole book about that. And then the next thing I know is he's introducing me to his assistant to schedule time so we can talk. And
right.
I didn't know it at the time when I was on my ride up, doing the journey. I learned a lot, but it took several years later going, man, what is Steven Tyler and Woody Harrelson and Maya Angelou and Jimmy Carter and the president of, the Ritz-Carlton, and all these people all have in common is that they still are lifelong learners. They're kids.
Right.
They're still appreciating and approaching life with a deep sense of curiosity. And why I think this is so important is that growing up as I did, most people that I interacted with were cynical and bitter and resigned and frustrated and using their language to tell a story that life is really shitty. And their guiding principles were negative, that produced negative results. And that was pretty much the majority of who I interacted with. And every once in a while, I met somebody that had a little sparkle in their eye and they were doing cool things, but they were not as ever present as all the cynics. Then I countered that by talking to all these amazing people who were living in possibility and producing amazing things in their lives. And those people were actually not like the other ones. Their guiding principles were, hey, man, wonder is important. I have no idea what's going to happen next. I got to show up in this moment. It's one of the things that we're talking about, being present. Coming from a place of wonder means to make no assumptions, to show up and to be present and to listen. Listening is another one, man. Extraordinary people listen really well. That's what makes them great talkers, is that they know how to listen. A lot of people are terrible listeners and talk a lot and say nothing. People who are living and producing extraordinary results know how to wield language to say things that matter. And why they say things that matter is that they're listening to see what would matter for the other person. Their communication's less about them. It's more about how it lands for the other person. But wonder is something that I just think it's our birthright. Every child on this planet was born with a sense of wonder. It doesn't matter what religion you come from or what part of the world you were born. Everybody comes in with like, what's that? What's this? Wow, let me taste that. Let me try this. That looks neat. Let me do. And that sense of wonder kind of gets punched out of our little bodies. We knock the wind out of our sense of wonder, and people stop being wondrous, and then they don't understand why their lives aren't working. Wonder is the thing that unifies all of us. It's here on the farm. It's here when we're creating a project. It's here when we're building a team. It's here when we're raising a family. Wonder, if we can approach life with that sense of marvel and awe, then our life becomes full of marvel and awe. And I think now it's so easy with the pandemic and all the stuff that's happening right now that's pulling our attention away from wonder, that if you want to combat that, reclaim your sense of wonder. Remember that here's another guiding principle. Make no assumptions. Make no assumptions. Yeah. Everybody's walking around making all kinds of assumptions, and that's the opposite of wonder. Coming from a place of wonder would mean I don't know what's going on with you. I don't know what's going on with that person. If I get a terse email from somebody and I read that, I'm like, what a jerk. I'm so mad at them. Versus, whoa, wait a second. Why did this person do that? Let me pick up the phone. Let me call over there and go, hey, are you okay? I'm genuinely concerned about you. I want to know what's happening. Coming from a sense of wonder, curiosity, is so much more powerful than coming from cynicism and jadedness.
That's amazing. That has been consistently universal through the 25 years of your studies and delivering these programs. I don't know if the word is ironic, Eric, but it's ironic to hear you say you grew up and came from a resigned, cynical world, yet your journey was to reconnect, reanimate, rejuvenate your own wonder. And while you were doing that, one of the core virtues that you discovered in these incredibly iconic people was the sense of wonder. It's just a beautiful kind of yin-yang karmic circle there. It just is really beautiful. It's kind of one is feeding the other. You're able to distill and draw from these great interviews and these great interactions you have with all these icons. But at the same time, it's putting nutrition and water and sun into your own soil to then be able to give it back out into the world. I don't know if you see it that way, but that's kind of how it's occurring to me.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, man. The thing, we seek what we want to find most, I guess. I grew up with a father that was crippled and had a stroke when he was 28 and was paralyzed on the left side of his body. And, and he was angry and bitter, and rightfully so. He lost the use of his whole left side of his body. And he was an athlete, a champion athlete, and loved to play and do things. And all of a sudden he couldn't. So I grew up in an environment he was frustrated. He was bitter. He was angry. He got his life ripped out from underneath him. And so having that as my father figure, it's the very thing that compelled me to go seek fatherly and motherly advice from people that weren't stopped like that, people that didn't have that level of disillusionment. And the irony of all that is that I went and met all these iconic people, learned so much. My life got enriched and enhanced. I've been able to have the privilege of speaking to organizations all around the world and share leadership lessons and guiding principles and communication insights. But after meeting all these iconic people, there's a great line Mark Twain said, "When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant, I could hardly stand to have him around. But when I turned 21, I was astonished at how much he had learned in 7 years." After taking this odyssey, I got to go, essentially thought my dad didn't have much to teach me, went and met all these iconic leaders. And then after meeting all these people, I had an opportunity to go back and thank my father. It was actually because of him that gave me the strength and courage to go do this. It was because of my father being crippled. It taught me about resourcefulness. Because my father would always tell me no as a kid whenever I wanted something, it taught me to be able to be resilient and tenacious to get interviews. Even when they told me no, I kept going after it and kept going after it. It was because of my dad's crippledness that had me go, man, life is a precious gift, and I'm going to live it 24 hours at a time, all in, because I never know when my number's going to be called. And so he gave me a lot of passion and a lot of drive. And so I got a chance to go back and honor my father for the role he played, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to take the journey I did.
Yeah, you're out there in the world with all these icons, and he's really the one who provided the lessons all along. You know, obviously the icons made it deeper and you know, took you down roads that you never would have gone down. But it's incredible. You know, my father passed away very suddenly when I was 14, and actually I was 13. And yeah, you know, there was moments of similar to your background where there was a lot of resignation and cynicism and upset and victim and everything. And took a while there, but I don't know if it was Mark Twain's 7 years, but something around that, where he gave me everything I needed in the time that we were together. And, you know, to this day, he's ever present in all the lessons. Every morning I wake my kids up and I say, life is, and they fill in the blank, an adventure. And that's exactly what my dad said every morning. So the through line, if you will, of life is really fascinating when you kind of have these conversations that I'm really enjoying having and learning to moderate these conversations. I think we have a lot of great stuff, Eric. I don't know if there's anything that you're burning to share with people that you want them to know about you, or about, more importantly, maybe the work that you're doing, or some, you know, I know I asked you about what's exciting you, but anything that you maybe want to round out or fill in, no time frame, you know, please share or say whatever you'd like to say.
You know, I feel so blessed. You know, I think about speaking with such reverence that I feel like we're all just a bunch of Indian chiefs, really. And we're all sitting around a fire, and somebody says, "Hey, Eric, would you take the talking stick?" And I feel that that's something that I feel all of us would benefit if we thought about speaking with such reverence like that. You know, it's an honor and a privilege to be given the talking stick. One of my favorite sayings is, "Don't speak unless you can improve the silence." Oh. I think that's kind of heavy, but it's powerful, right? Like this, to sit back and to just allow things to happen. And then when called forth to talk, or if you really feel like you have something really powerful to say, then say it. Otherwise, listen. And if everyone's talking, no one's learning anything. Can't come from a sense of wonder if everyone's talking. It's really good to listen. And when I get invited to give speeches, I really do. I feel like, wow, here's the talking stick. And I've been fortunate over 25 years to do what I do and to speak in front of some of the top organizations in the world. And I love it. I love talking to incentive groups. I love talking to help teams. I love helping to talk to leaders. I like talking to salespeople. It's just been a real wonderful experience to share these lessons and to impact people's lives. We've been doing a lot of team building stuff lately. It's been a lot of fun. We've come up with a really cool, innovative team building experience that's centered around asking questions. And so the whole team comes together and get a chance to ask each other these leadership questions around three things. What are three things you've learned about leadership? What are three things you've learned about getting into trouble? What are three things you've learned about time? What are three things you've learned about commitment? What are three things you've learned about making mistakes? And everybody gets their question and gets to walk around and ask everybody in the organization their question, and then they get to ask the person ask them their question, and everybody, all of a sudden, if you've got 17 people on a team, 17 people all answering 3 things to that one question just deepens everybody's learning so much, and everybody walks away with such wisdom and humor and inspiration. There's a lot of laughter. And then when we're done asking all those questions, we come back in a circle again, and then everyone gets to share what they learned to the group having that one question. And it's like mini little TED Talks. Like everybody just shows up so powerfully, and everyone sounds so smart, and everybody gets a chance to celebrate the collective wisdom of everybody that's in the room. It's so fabulous. The feedback we're getting from organizations that are doing this work with us is off the charts positive. It's just it's not like any other team building, because it's centered around reminding people how powerful it is to ask questions, how powerful it is to be seen and heard. Again, how to create psychological safety, improve the overall organizational health, create increased levels of empathy, camaraderie, it improves team dynamics. Everything about it is just a win-win-win across the board. So that's been a lot of fun. Coaching executives has been really rewarding. It's another thing out of this being able to, as a keynote speaker, which is amazing, to get up and speak to an audience and really drop seeds in there and craft things that really land for the listener and that they remember it years later is a real craft. And I've been really fortunate to be part of that industry. And then coaching people has been a whole new pathway for me, where I get a chance to really get into people's listening, really help them look at language and the language they're using, and help them ratchet it up so that they're actually using stories and ideas that empower themselves and others.
Right.
Most people are walking around with a huge blind spot. They're actually wanting to create community, wanting to create a sense of belonging, want to create a sense of togetherness, but without even knowing it, their words are actually doing the opposite.
Right.
They're actually saying things that are off-putting. They're saying things that are creating dissension. They're saying things that are creating conflict, and they don't even know it. And that's one of my favorite things about communication, is that as a guy who studied communication for 25 years now, most people think what they're saying is actually being heard by the other person, and it rarely is. Communication to me is a miracle that it happens at all. And as somebody who studied communication for as long as I have, I even still screw up, yet I'm super intentional about it. So if somebody's not even intentional at all, they're saying things believing that what they're saying is landing over there, and it's not. And then they get confused when the person is doing something that's not what they asked them to do, but they didn't take any time to unravel that. So inside of the coaching, we get a chance to really unravel people's communication and help them figure out how they can turn their language in the on position and produce extraordinary results.
Yeah. I love that phrase, language in the on position. You know, I'll just finish up with this, and I think you would agree. Words matter. We're all better off when we're responsible and we pay attention to what comes out of our mouth and what we're thinking. I love that quote that you just said about speak only if you improve the silence. I'm paraphrasing. But what I noticed, Eric, not just in this conversation, but recently reconnecting and, you know, going back 25 years ago with the movie and graduating college and the start of the journey really, is that the evolution of your work is that the work is front and center. Whereas 25 years ago, maybe it was your work and your personality. And now you've kind of disappeared. And what's there is this mastery in communication, in leadership coaching, in getting people out of their own way, and having people get in touch with their core virtues and everything. And your personality, while it's the vehicle, is really not the dominant feature of it. And I tell people that's why I work with speakers like you, because that's what's important. When our clients have you, Eric, on stage, what they walk away with is something tangible that they can deploy right away. It breaks my heart when my clients' attendees walk away and their comments are, that person is amazing. That was a great story. Oh my God, what an incredible, visual presentation. Where's the beef? And with you, it's all beef. So, I get excited when I include you in my offerings to my clients, because I know that it's going to be impactful and it's going to be lasting. So, I just want to appreciate that for you while we're finishing up here. And
I'm honored, and I'm laughing because this is true. My great aunt is a woman named Clara Peller. And Clara Peller was the woman in that Wendy's commercial that said, "Where's the beef?"
Ah! Wow. Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So So wait a minute. Let's recap. Lily Tomlin, Gandhi, Mark Twain, Steven Tyler, and your great aunt. I mean, that's pretty much. I think we've covered it all.
This is the kind of quality entertainment you can expect from our side of the house over here.
That's really great. All
right,
look,
man. I want to say thank you for what you just said. It didn't go unnoticed. That thank you for acknowledging me in that. You are correct. When I was younger, I was the journey. I was a guy who was trafficking off of not only what I had done, but a big part of my personality. And it was more centered around me, I guess, if I'm being transparent. It was me telling my story and all that. And over the years, I've really intentionally been retracting that and trying to peel myself away from it. And it feels to me that it's less about me and more about the other. That's kind of one of my guiding principles. It's less about me, more about the other. And how can I, if I'm going to take the talking stick, how do I provide value? And really, it's been, thank you for seeing that in me. I know we've known each other now for a long time. That is very important to me, that the journey was a big part of my life. And now my life is about creating impact and making a difference and really getting into other people's listening and helping organizations and teams and people wake up excited and go to bed fulfilled and live extraordinary lives, because life is precious and we never know when we're going to be called out of here. And so let's make every moment really
you're now impacting and sourcing others' journeys. So it's pretty cool. If you'd like to learn more about this speaker, visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com. There you'll find dozens of videos of speakers that are a perfect fit for your event. If you'd like to reach out directly, please click on the link below in the description. My name is Seth Dechtman, and you've been watching Curated Insights.